Hi everyone, it's Dr. Raj. So on today's show, we talked about relapse prevention and we're talking about addiction. And I want you to think of the following, and it really applies to all areas of addiction. If we're talking about a drug or an alcohol addiction, or if we're talking about, let's say, a sex addiction, you want to look at four particular areas. One, biologically, what can you do? Two, psychologically, what can you do? Three, socially, and four, spiritually. So bio, psycho, social, and spiritual. All right, so biologically, there are certain medications and certain nutraceutical products, these are herbal products, that will help either, for example, deal with anxiety or maybe deal with cravings. So you always want to look at the biological aspects of how you can affect that area. Also, biofeedback is another one. Acupuncture is another one. So there's many ways to affect the biology. Two, let's talk about the psychology. Now remember, I remember this case on the unit when I was unit chief on a dual diagnosis unit. And I remember somebody telling me, you know what, when I stopped drinking, and this individual actually had already stopped drinking for about 7 days at this point. And I said, do you realize what you just said? You said, when I stopped drinking. Well, what does that really mean then? That you are still drinking. But the reality was that he had not had a drink in almost a week. So we have to be very careful of the words we use, how we set it up. Do we get back into difficult situations such that then we can take the back door? Another example of that, somebody who recently was in an internship said, you know what, I lost my job. But really the internship actually had completed. And I said, well, it was an internship. It wasn't, it wasn't a job, right? And so we have to be very careful how we set things up psychologically to take the back door. Three, social aspects. People, places, and things, right? As the old saying goes, if you hang out in a bar long enough, you're going to have a drink, okay? So be very careful about how you set yourself up with the people, places, and things. And lastly, spiritual aspects. See if you can get in touch with some level of a group, a fellowship, something you can be involved with. There was a gentleman in Harvard who did a very large study, George Valiant, and he followed individuals who had alcoholism. And the number one thing he found that made the biggest difference was being in a fellowship, belonging to a group, a new group, somewhere where you could realize that, I'm not alone. And I'll tell you, you are powerful. You can choose to stop. You are not powerless. I believe you are powerful. And it's a choice. Whenever anyone who has stopped actually has chosen to stop. And you can too. So make sure that you plan a relapse prevention plan looking at the biology, the psychology, the social aspects, and the spiritual pieces. This is Dr. Raj saying, be well.